Meanwhile, the African Development Bank is calling for a pragmatic energy mix until the continent is able to get financial resources to enhance its green energy potential. Now, the lender is on a target to raise up to $38 billion for climate finance for between 2020 and 2025. But it also says the continent needs much more funding to achieve those goals. More on how the lender intends to bridge that financial gap with CGTN's Adele El-Maroui, who spoke to the bank's Vice President for Power, Energy, Climate and Green Growth, Dr. Kevin Kariuki.
How much have you approved so far in terms of finances for renewable, and how much that represents from what Africa needs?
From a renewable perspective, we have to date confirmed or approved about 3,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity. But in order to be able to get where we are, we need a lot more money. Today, Africa only accounts for 6% of the global energy demand. And we have about 600 million people who don't have access to electricity. And another almost 1 billion people who don't have access to clean cooking. So the demands on energy are huge.
Can we access money enough to develop and achieve that?
We are mobilizing out of, say, 100% of all our investments. 40% is what we call climate finance, which is quite considerable, considering that there are other equally pressing needs. Out of the $2.4 billion that we've provided as climate finance, 67% of that was adaptation finance, which is about $1.5 billion. That's what we are able to do. However, the bank is truly ambitious and understands Africa's needs. So as a result, last year we teamed up with the Global Center on Adaptation with a view to raising another $25 billion for adaptation between 2020 and 2025, and therefore bringing the overall climate finance, both mitigation and adaptation finance, to $37.5 billion.
Some African countries have said that they will object to any restrictions on them tapping into their oil and gas reserves and restricting their exports for fossil fuel. The reason, they say, is that this is how they can tackle poverty and economic growth on the short term. Do you think the world is rushing Africa to move to energy at a time the continent doesn't have enough power or resources to meet the speed required?
Africa suffers from severe energy poverty. So I think the priority today is to, first of all, to grow Africa's energy base, because energy will go into productive uses and improve improve the socio-economic performance of these countries. What you find today is that a lot of the climate finance to these heavily indebted countries who are under serious debt distress are actually having to borrow money to attend to the climate crisis, of which they have contributed the least. However, we will not be irresponsible. There is a role for gas and also for oil, but I think the prioritization to date should be on renewables. But at the end of the day, it has to be a viable or balanced energy mix.